She'd spent her entire life caring for others.
She has such a loving, nurturing personality.
She was a very responsible young woman.
She never put herself first.
But she found someone who did.
Let me get my purse.
Okay.
He makes her the center of his world.
That was very positive for her.
She was ready to take that next step.
Only she never would.
She didn't show up to work.
She's literally just disappeared.
Give me a call. That was a red flag.
They knew something wasn't right.
The search for the missing woman leads nowhere.
They had hit a dead end.
We didn't see nothing that stood out.
They aren't able to come up with a single shred of evidence.
Until one phone call changes everything.
They saw on Facebook that she's missing.
Alarm bells are definitely going off.
And his friend said, he acted funny. Why was you going to shovel?
March 7th, 2017. It's almost spring in Texarkana, Arkansas, a town of 30,000 that's just across the state line from its Texas twin.
You don't even realize when you're in Arkansas or Texas, they are twin sisters, so to speak, because they have a very, very close culture.
A lot of that culture revolves around the majority of piney woods that surrounds both of the cities.
A lot of people hunt. There's like 50-something thousand acres of core land, which is like public hunting.
But on this chilly March morning, one worried mother is hunting for her daughter, 35-year-old Crystal Reed.
Crystal's mom is unable to find Crystal. She tries calling her and Crystal doesn't answer, which is not typical for Crystal. Crystal is usually the type that would respond to her mom right away.
Her mother was immediately alarmed.
Is Crystal? Leave a message.
Hey, Crystal, this is Mom. When you get this message, give me a call.
That mother's instinct kicked in, that something just isn't right.
Unable to reach Crystal directly, her mother calls the sandwich shop where she works.
Hello?
Hi, sorry to bother you all, but is Crystal Reed in?
No, ma'am.
She's not. Okay, thank you.
She still didn't show up for work.
That was a red flag. Crystal was never one to shirk her responsibilities. Something was wrong.
35-year-old Crystal Reed had always been known to put the needs of others before her own.
Crystal was a beautiful soul who was well loved by everyone she came into contact with.
She took care of her family, her friends, and whoever else was in need.
And the person she cared for most was her disabled little sister.
Crystal spent a large part of her life caring for her sister.
Because of the love that she had for her sister and just her natural instinct to care, that says a lot about her.
She was very responsible in keeping a consistent schedule in not only taking care of her sister, but also checking in with her mom.
But as Crystal got older, she finally decided it was time to do something for herself.
She wanted to meet someone to share her life with.
She was ready for love, ready for romance, ready to take that next step in her life.
That's when Tony Taylor entered the picture.
Tony worked at a telephone company and he met Crystal on a service call.
So I am actually just about done.
Yeah. Now, Tone, try that.
Thank you so much.
No problem. So, now that the phone's working, you should let me call you on it sometime.
She's initially a little apprehensive.
It's natural for someone to have a little reservation.
Tony just didn't seem like her type.
He was a country boy, so he knew his way around the woods. He was a hunter.
You won't regret it, I promise.
All right, I guess that'll be okay.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Though Crystal wasn't convinced she and Tony would make a good match, he proved her wrong.
Hey, Sean, how you doing?
Come on in.
He turns on the charm. He's determined to win this woman over.
He expressed his love by showering gifts. You know, the art of seduction.
After years of caring for others, it was a refreshing change for Crystal.
Tony was able to demonstrate his ability to care for her.
Someone is prioritizing her, putting her first. And Crystal leans into that.
Soon they were all but inseparable.
She moved into Tony's apartment.
Crystal really loved Tony.
It sounds like marriage would be the next logical step.
But now, Crystal's mother worries that something bad has happened to her daughter.
Crystal hasn't shown up to places she was supposed to be. She hasn't shown up for work.
And she was not answering her phone.
Not to show up at all and not call, that's not the norm.
She was really, really concerned.
But can Crystal's boyfriend allay her fears?
And trying to locate Crystal, Crystal's mom reaches out to Tony.
Hello?
Hey, Tony, this is Miss Reed. Have you seen or heard from Crystal? I've been calling and calling her.
What Tony told Crystal's mom really caused some concern.
No, I don't know where she is.
Tony let her know that they did get into a fight.
We got into a fight and she grabbed her purse.
He said she stormed out of the apartment.
I haven't seen her since.
After spending most of her life caring for others, 35-year-old Crystal Reed had finally found someone interested in taking care of her for a change.
Falling in love with Tony was something that was very positive for her.
He makes her the center of his world. This feels good to Crystal because for so much of her life, everyone else, namely her sister, has been the center of her world.
They were building a life together and talking about marriage.
But now it appears their world has fallen apart.
When Crystal's mom was unable to contact her, she attempted to reach her at her new job. And when she found out that Crystal didn't show up to work, that was a red flag, and that Crystal is a no-call, no-show at a new position. It caused her mom lots of concern.
And when her mom contacts Tony,
Hello?
he says that Crystal stormed out of the house after an argument the night before.
He hadn't seen or talked to her since then.
She's not answering her phone?
Tony is just as shocked as Crystal's mom was that she couldn't find Crystal.
You haven't called her?
I figured she was still mad at me.
Depending on the relationship one has and the level of the argument, people can go and cool off. So it is natural, generally speaking, for people to take time out.
But now that Crystal was not answering her phone, Tony didn't seem so sure.
You think something happened to her?
I don't know.
In situations like this, individuals will start thinking of the worst possible outcomes.
After she gets off the phone with Tony, Crystal's mom makes another call to the police.
At this point, there's nothing left for Crystal's mom to do except for file a missing persons report.
When was the last time you talked to her?
Yesterday.
Crystal's mom told the police how out of character it was for her to stay out of touch. And she also told them about the argument Crystal had the night before.
But the response she gets from the police isn't what she hoped for.
Tomorrow?
There's a lag unless it's like a hot case or a hot crime, something in motion. Officers will take a report, they'll turn it into a supervisor, and then it gets turned in basically in our system, and then it comes to CID usually the day after.
A lot of times missing persons just wanted some time alone. They normally come back within a few hours or the next day.
Maybe she had a flat tire and her phone died, or something came up on the schedule that she didn't know anything about.
The next morning, there's still no word from Crystal. So detectives follow up with her mother.
We started looking into what kind of person she was and where she might have been gone and what I'd gone to. We spent a little time with her mother.
So her boyfriend hasn't heard from her?
No, I talked to him this morning. I even called her job. Nobody's heard from her. It's been 2 days.
Okay, thank you.
After speaking with Crystal's mom, detectives pay a visit to the apartment Crystal shares with her boyfriend, Tony.
Thank you for seeing us.
He said he wanted to help. He was concerned for her, too.
I can't believe this is happening, man.
I mean, really came across who did love Crystal. If you have an argument with your loved one of the first things you do after you cool off is try to reach out to them. You make a phone call or a text, trying to make an apology or see if they're going to apologize.
I mean, I've been trying to call her, and she's not answering.
And Crystal had never called back.
He seemed really worried at this point.
However, the detectives can't take Tony entirely at his word.
You mind if we take a look around?
Yeah, sure.
He was willing for them to search it. He's like, come on, I have nothing to hide.
Tony was very helpful during the investigation.
Walking through the apartment, the detectives don't spot anything unusual.
Didn't find anything suspicious.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time.
Take care.
After the walkthrough, the detectives speak to the couple's neighbors.
They had knocked on a few doors and were eventually able to speak with the woman that lived directly below them.
She told police she would hear Crystal and Tony arguing fairly often.
What kind of arguments?
The usual stuff.
Anything ever get physical?
No, not that I know of.
She never heard anything that would alarm her that it was physically violent or that it could possibly be dangerous.
This is kind of like their norm. They fight, they make up and break up.
Which, let's be honest, wasn't all that unusual.
The neighbor also says that she'd overheard Crystal and Tony arguing the night she disappeared.
Which, of course, fits with what Tony had already told them.
She told them they had a heated argument.
Did you see her leave?
No, but I think I know where she went.
Oh, where's that?
What their neighbor said next added an entirely new angle to the case.
She says, I think that she has been having a love affair and it has been going on for some time.
Detectives investigating Crystal Reed's disappearance suspect there may be a reason the 35-year-old didn't come home to her boyfriend, Tony Taylor.
There are rumors that Crystal is having an affair.
A neighbor told police officers that there was possibly another person in Crystal's life.
Maybe this is where Crystal had run off to after she left Tony during that argument.
Do you know the guy's name?
Nah, I just heard rumors.
Do you know where he lives?
No.
She had no information on any potential party that Crystal could have been speaking to or other place that she would have gone.
It was the slimmest of leads.
Hoping Crystal's family might know more, the detectives reach back out to her mother.
When detectives received the tip of a possible second relationship, they have to investigate it.
The police come back and they ask Crystal's mama, did you know if Crystal had an affair?
An affair?
Her mother was absolutely shocked by the question.
Crystal's mother says that whatever the police heard has to be wrong.
Mom was like, she seemed happy. She seemed joyful. She was enjoying her place in life. She had somebody she could depend on. You know, things were moving upward.
Why would she have an affair?
So she never said anything to you about seeing someone else?
No, absolutely not.
They had a very unique relationship. And even if she doesn't explicitly say it, I know my daughter, there would be some sign that maybe something else was going on outside of that. And there was no indications.
However, Crystal's mother also admits that things weren't perfect between her daughter and Tony.
For one, she didn't like the way he liked to go off into the woods alone.
Tony was an avid hunter.
We're talking about Texarkana, so there are a lot of hunting grounds here. You have a lot of parks, and you like to hunt, you're gonna hunt. That's his pastime. That's something that he is really good at.
He has several hunting leases out in the woods of Texarkana.
I personally thought it was pretty good for him to get away sometime.
She assumed that they were a couple who occasionally has arguments, will also take time outs and recover, and then come back together and move forward in their relationship.
So her mother doubted that Crystal had been having an affair.
Was Crystal keeping secrets from her mother? Or was the alleged affair nothing more than a rumor? To find out, the detectives subpoena her phone records.
Police officers conduct a thorough search into her call log to look and see if there was any evidence of Crystal communicating with anybody who she could have been having an affair with.
They come up empty-handed.
There's nothing in this call record, these details, to suggest anything.
Her regular calls were all to her family and Tony.
The police were unable to find any consistent communication with anyone else that would have alluded to the fact that Crystal might have been having an affair.
When the detectives search through Crystal's text messages, they likewise fail to turn up any leads.
They're baffled. In all of their digging, they aren't able to come up with a single shred of evidence that would suggest Crystal is seeing someone else.
But just as the investigation appears to be stalling out, the detectives get another possible lead.
We got a phone call from the Texarkana, Texas officer who had been called out to some suspicious stuff at the residence.
Texas officers called and contacted us, says, hey, this may be connected to y'all's missing person.
The officer on the phone mentions a familiar name, Tony Taylor.
The people that lived at the house, they were friends with Tony Taylor. The husband had hunted with him on a hunting lease, and they said he came in the house on the 7th.
Tony had never shown up unannounced before, and his friend didn't really know what to make of it.
But his friend says that wasn't all that was strange.
Hey, man.
What's going on?
You have to use your washroom?
Man, you're filthy. You mind washing up our back?
I don't mind.
Tony had mud on his pants from the knees down.
He was filthy, wanted to clean them.
You got bleach?
He started cleaning his hands with bleach, which you know as well as I do, that's not really a common thing to wash your hands with is bleach, unless, well, in my line of work, it's unless you're trying to hide something.
Could this be the break detectives need to find Crystal?
At that time, myself and Detective Hack, we went to this residence, which is right off Texas Boulevard, on Texarkana side of town.
We were able to talk to the person that lived at the house.
And so you thought he was acting suspicious?
Well, not suspicious, just strange.
Tony is usually the type of person who's making jokes and making light in a conversation, but Tony was behaving very oddly. He was quiet and very reserved.
I didn't even know about Crystal.
Good thing with social media now, they saw on Facebook that Crystal's mother had posted that she's missing and she was looking for her whereabouts, and put 2 and 2 together and was able to call Texarkana, Texas Police Department.
And his friend said, he acted funny. They thought it was weird.
However, according to Tony's friend, asking to clean up wasn't the only odd thing he did.
Tony asked this friend if he could leave some items at his house for a couple of days.
What kind of items?
Well, that's the part that really got me worried.
Tony brought a muddy shovel to the house.
Detectives searching for Crystal Reed have received some disturbing information about the missing woman's boyfriend, Tony Taylor.
Tony had showed up at a friend's house the day after Crystal disappeared, covered in mud and looking to get rid of a few suspicious items.
Tony had a shovel, muddy boots, plastic garbage bag, and asked if he could leave these items on the back porch.
You still have them?
Yeah, they're on the back porch where he left them.
You mind if we take a look?
Yes, sir.
At that point, they decided, hey, we're going to call the crime scene unit out to analyze the stuff. And we started processing that stuff and realized, hey, there is something to this.
One of the items that was taken into evidence was a blanket that appeared to have a blood stain on it.
That coupled together was just very suspicious. It seemed more like somebody was trying to cover something up. Again, taking the bleach bath, you're trying to get rid of evidence is what it sounded like.
Or could it be a false alarm?
We processed the items that looked like blood at the scene. We collected some on an OBTI, presumptive blood test kit. And basically what it does, it tells you, hey, this is positive for blood or negative for blood. And in this case, it was not blood, but we did collect that stuff. We photographed it.
They also collected the bleach bottle that Tony had used while he cleaned up.
It's best practice, collect as much as you can and decipher later, because there's been a lot of times where investigators have not collected things they wish they had. So we just try to be as methodical as we can.
While the CSI work, the detectives see what else they can learn from Tony's friend.
His friends seemed to be real good people, upstanding, hardworking. So he wasn't all interested in trying to cover up for someone's crime.
He wasn't close to Crystal. He knew who she was, but they were better friends with Tony because of the hunting lease. They knew something wasn't right, and so they reached out and they did the right thing.
And the detectives suspect they can do even more.
That deer lease where you all hunt, where is that?
He said Ogden, Arkansas, which is about 15, 20 miles up the road to the north of us here.
Now, can you show us where it is? Yeah, okay. Oh, okay, thank you.
Detective Easley really had a feeling about it. He's like, hey, show us where this is.
Knowing people are creatures of habit. You're just not going to dispose of a body in an area that you don't know.
He rode with us and we went out there to look at it.
While the detectives head out to the hunting lease, the CSI team heads to Tony and Crystal's apartment.
Got a search warrant for the apartment.
While they hadn't found blood on the items Tony had left at his friend's house, their story gave detectives enough probable cause to secure a warrant.
The last person that saw her alive or saw her anywhere was Tony Taylor at the apartment. We had him cleaning his hands with bleach.
Tony isn't home, but the building manager lets the crime scene investigators into the apartment.
We walk inside and immediately noticed it was pretty clean.
Which is the same thing that detectives noticed in their brief walkthrough after Crystal's mother reported her missing.
The earlier search had failed to find anything suspicious, but that doesn't deter the CSI investigators.
They are doing a hardcore search. It's now more targeted.
As CSI continues searching the apartment, the detectives and Tony's friend reach the hunting lease in Ogden.
We get coming by a big gravel pit. Look, you can see tracks. It looked like somebody stopped there, and you can see footprints. This is a very large area, so it's probably 40 to 80 acres. So we look around there, just, statistically, they're not going to carry a body very far.
She was like 5'5", maybe 120 130 pounds. She wasn't a large woman at all. She was fairly small, but it's dead weight.
So me and Detective Hack, we made a circle about 100 yards, zigzagging, looking. We didn't see nothing that stood out to us. And
detectives are back at square one.
They really thought they were going to find Crystal's body.
Well, so much for my hunch.
Yeah, I think I better get the dogs out here.
That's a good idea.
we called our supervisor at the time and said, hey, we're probably gonna need some cadaver dogs up here.
But as it turned out, the supervisors had some welcome news for the detectives.
The CSI team had found something.
We're processing the apartment, taking photographs of it, and at one point when we're inside the apartment, one of our crime scene investigators, one of my partners, happened to move the couch.
They find a big stain.
This is very suspicious. We need to start digging deeper. So we've used a chemical called Blue Star, which in the presence of blood, it'll glow like a bluish color.
When they sprayed the stain with the Blue Star chemical, the results were unmistakable.
It tested positive for blood.
The search for Crystal Reed has taken a grim turn after crime scene investigators find a suspicious stain in the apartment the missing 35-year-old shares with her boyfriend, Tony Taylor.
They are able to use luminol to confirm that it was in fact blood that they found.
It was a fair amount, which led us to believe there was a significant bleeding scenario that occurred there.
But that was only the beginning.
Hey, let's keep looking. There's gotta be more.
We did notice while we were processing the scene a mop, and there was appeared to be a blood stain on the handle.
When they spray luminol on the mop handle, they're able to uncover blood on the mop handle as well.
They were able to see that blood had been cleaned up throughout the apartment.
The telltale traces of a cleanup isn't all the investigators find.
We located several other items of evidentiary value, including credit cards, driver's license, stuff like that of Miss Reed. We knew something had happened to her. You're not going to leave with a lot of these items still at the house.
At best, Crystal's in grave danger. At worst, which is looking like Crystal is indeed no longer in the land of the living.
All but convinced they are dealing with a homicide, detectives issue a warrant for Tony Taylor.
Based on the amount of evidence that the detectives were able to uncover, their next step was locating Tony.
And it doesn't take long for the police to track him down at his ex-wife's house.
He was brought down to the investigative division for an interview.
He was pretty relaxed. He wasn't confrontational.
And in the interrogation room, he sticks to his story.
He maintains he doesn't know what happened to Crystal.
When was the last time you saw Crystal?
11 o'clock. I mean, not 11 o'clock, 11:30. And she had went out the door.
He denied doing anything to Crystal.
We didn't have no fight or nothing.
Just argue?
Yeah.
This time, however, Tony reveals what they'd supposedly been arguing about.
She been messing with that mail stuff.
Tony said he got upset with her because she was out doing drugs with some other guys in the apartment complex.
And he told them that that's what they were fighting about.
I mean, if you're trying to keep her off drugs, right, I imagine you're probably having to deal with her getting mad at you quite a bit, right?
Right.
It's the opening the detectives have been waiting for.
We spent the first portion of our interview talking to him, just trying to build a rapport.
You're just trying to keep her off this dope. You're trying to do what you can to keep her off the street.
Once they've gained Tony's trust, the detectives apply a little pressure.
We just need to know what happened in that apartment. And I know you can tell me, and I want you to tell me. And I want to tell you something. It's eating you up on the inside. You can't sleep, you can't eat. It's tearing you up. You feel like just nervous as hell. And you're gonna continue to feel like that until you talk to us and tell us what happened, okay? Because you can't hold that, because if you was a bad person, it wouldn't bother you. You're not a bad person, it's bothering you. I can see it in your eyes, it's bothering you.
Tony begins to change his story.
He started easing into and confessing.
Tony begins by saying the argument that night started like most others.
He was just irritated with her.
Where the hell you been at?
I went to buy cigarettes.
You ain't buy no cigarettes, you lying.
He got upset with her because he thought she was out doing drugs.
But he says she was accusing him and you only wanted for sex.
And then, according to Tony, things got out of hand.
So, what happened? Did she attack you or?
He said that she got a knife. He said he was been cleaning his fingernails with his pocket knife and had set it down. And then she attacked him with it.
She tried to stab you?
Tony says that a struggle ensued.
And then at some point in time, the knife got turned around and she was stabbed.
You stabbed her?
Well, yeah, I whooped her around.
Oh, when she had the knife and she tried to stab her?
He told the detectives that he didn't mean to kill her.
But that is what he'd done.
Where did he stab her at?
He didn't know. I guess the main artery.
The main artery, and she bled everywhere, didn't she?
Tony said he had tried to stop the bleeding.
It was too much?
Then, once he realized Crystal was dead, Tony made a fateful decision.
He went into survivor mode and started cleaning up.
Tony confessed to the detectives that he disposed of Crystal's body.
With Tony's confession secured, the detectives move on to their next goal, recovering Crystal's body.
You don't want her out there.
You don't want her where she's at?
That's not right for her, you know that. So let us go get her, okay?
The detectives really lean on the fact that they want Crystal's mom to have closure. And they continue to lean on Tony, trying to get him to do the right thing.
We can take it back with wood, Tony. I know you would, wouldn't you? You're not a bad person. You made a mistake. Trying to help her, you made a mistake. But we can't leave her out there in this weather.
Sorry.
Oh, well.
We know you are.
We know you're sorry. We know you didn't mean for this to happen.
His telltale heart was getting to him. His conscience was getting to him.
He told us, and I took her out in the woods and buried her.
And now, there was only one more thing the detectives needed.
Would you take us up there and show it?
Tony Taylor has confessed to detectives that he killed his girlfriend, Crystal Reed, during an argument.
He claims she attacked him with a knife and she was stabbed during the struggle.
Tony told detectives that it was an accident.
And he agreed that he would want to take them to see where he buried Crystal.
Little Pete, wow.
That's okay.
Tony leads them out to the hunting lease his friend had taken the detectives to earlier.
However, he led them far deeper into the woods than their initial search.
He actually toted her for over a mile through the woods.
That's a long ways to go. He had to cross a fence. It was muddy. Some of the area was swampy. He had to cross a creek, a ditch, and then he couldn't go any further, so he had to cross the creek again.
Although for Tony, it was familiar work.
Hunting and stuff, dragging out a deer is taxing.
The detectives are deep in the woods before Tony finally stops.
Tony said that is where he buried Crystal.
He had disguised the area, scattered leaves, and had placed a couple of small logs and limbs and stuff over the burial site.
Once the police start digging, they don't stop until they're about 5 feet deep in the ground.
The digging ultimately reveals a large hunting game bag.
It wasn't just a body in a grave with the dirt mixed with it.
The bag was sealed up. It had duct tape around the top of it, so we didn't want to break that because we didn't want to disturb anything, lose any vital evidence at that scene. And at that point, we called the Little River County coroner.
She was transported to the Arkansas State Crime Lab.
Tony is taken back to Texarkana and booked on murder charges.
Tony is arrested for murder, tampering with evidence, and abusing a corpse.
But will the results of Crystal's autopsy corroborate his claim that he acted in self-defense?
That was only one single stab wound, and she did die from that.
However, that's the only part of the autopsy findings that lines up with what Tony told the detectives.
The angle of her injury indicated that Crystal was actually trying to run away from her attacker when she was stabbed.
Tony told detectives that they were fighting over the blade when he accidentally stabbed Crystal. However, Crystal wasn't coming at Tony. She was running away from him when she was murdered.
Based on the autopsy, detectives believe Tony only told them a partial truth.
Tony got upset with her because he thought she was out doing drugs with some other guys in the apartment complex.
He believed that Crystal was out doing drugs and partying and was with other men.
Thinking that you're being made a fool of. Thinking that someone is lying to you. Those type of things build up and then can cause a snap.
Where the hell you been?
I went to buy cigarettes.
You lying. Why you always lying to me?
And in that moment of anger, he'd lashed out.
I don't believe it's true that she was attacking him with a knife and he took it from her and then she got stabbed. If that was the case, call 911, get her some assistance, and explain your side of the story. But he didn't do that. He let her die.
Then, drawing on his experience as a hunter, he disposed of her body.
He went and got a bag out of his truck.
When you kill a deer, you don't want to put your deer inside your car because it's obviously going to stink and or have blood. And so he had a bag.
Once Crystal's body was bagged up, he'd carefully cleaned the apartment.
He was pretty meticulous on the disposal of the body, using bleach because he knew that it would get rid of the DNA.
Then he'd driven out to the hunting lease and buried Crystal's body deep in the woods.
Tony went to great lengths to try to dispose of Crystal.
But along the way, Tony's plan had gone awry.
On his way back to Texarkana, Crystal's mom calls and says, Tony, we need to meet up. So he well, I can't go meet her with all these dirty and bloody clothes and shovels and stuff in my truck. So he drops it off at his friend's residence.
And when Tony's friends heard Crystal was missing, they called the police.
Had they not reached out to us, we probably eventually would have gotten to Tony. It would have taken a long time.
But Tony never stands trial for what he did to Crystal.
He pled no contest, meaning that he's not admitting to doing it, but he's not saying that he's innocent.
And with pleading no contest, the judge looked at the totality of the circumstances and sentenced him to life in prison.
Although he ends up spending less than 5 years behind bars.
Tony ultimately ends up dying from a heart attack while he was in prison.
For Crystal's family, this is a bit of a cruel irony. He doesn't have to truly face his crime and his punishment.
But they will be dealing with the aftermath of what Tony did for years to come.
Crystal's family is left to grapple with putting their lives together after this loss, to grapple with trying to make sense of it.
She was 35 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. And then it was brutally taken from her. No parent should ever outlive their child. I have children myself, and I would hate to even imagine that. So when they say time heals all, I don't really know if it does. It might lessen the pain, but I do hope they can find some comfort knowing that she's at peace and maybe she's in a better place.
Furnace of Malice. Investigator Sidney Miller and his partner placed Tim Shepard and Quanell X in the rear of their unmarked police cruiser. Guided by Tim's directions, they drove to the specified apartment complex and pulled up alongside the large commercial dumpster. Fearing the worst, officers peered inside the metal container. The dumpster was completely empty. It had been systematically cleared by Municipal Waste Services hours earlier. Detectives quickly realized the devastating reality if her body had been placed in that dumpster. It had already been transported to a massive regional landfill containing tens of thousands of tons of compacted garbage. Experts estimated that searching the landfill would cost over $500,000 with virtually zero mathematical probability of recovering her remains. Facing this tragic reality, Tanisha's courageous family advised law enforcement not to waste public resources on an impossible landfill sift. Furthermore, upon being formally booked into custody and assigned legal counsel, Tim Shepard immediately invoked his constitutional rights, recanted his verbal confession to Quanell X, and refused to speak with investigators ever again. Prosecutors faced a formidable legal hurdle. In Texas, prosecuting a murder charge without a physical body or a recorded confession is extraordinarily difficult. Defense attorneys can easily argue that the missing person simply ran away or was harmed by an unknown third party. Major crimes investigators and crime scene investigation technicians returned to Tim Shepard's apartment with advanced forensic tools, determined to find microscopic physical evidence that would prove a homicide occurred within those four walls. Technicians dismantled the plumbing fixtures beneath the kitchen sink and bathroom facilities. Inside the mechanical teeth of the kitchen garbage disposal unit, technicians recovered tiny hard fragments. Biological analysis confirmed the startling truth. The fragments were human tooth enamel matching Tanisha Stewart's dental records. Furthermore, forensic sweeps of the outdoor patio area surrounding the barbecue grills yielded microscopic charred bone fragments embedded near the concrete edge. The horrific, unimaginable truth of what had transpired inside that apartment was finally laid bare. Tim Shepard had not simply thrown Tanisha's intact body into a dumpster. After strangling her to death in a jealous rage, he had spent days systematically dismembering her body inside his bathtub. He fed portions of her remains through the garbage disposal unit and spent over 48 hours incinerating her dismembered body inside the barbecue smokers on his patio using heavy charcoal. fires to reduce her physical form to ash and tiny bone fragments, which he then disposed of in the dumpster and washed away with bleach. The sheer, monstrous malice required to execute such an act left experienced homicide detectives deeply sickened. On March 27, 2007, a grand jury officially indicted Tim Shepard for the capital murder of Tanisha Stewart. Chapter 15: The Final Reckoning. On September 29, 2008, the trial of the state of Texas versus Tim Shepard commenced at the Harris County Courthouse in Houston. The courtroom was packed with media, law enforcement officers, and Tanisha's grieving family. Prosecutors opened their case by laying out the terrifying reality of Tim's actions, presenting the tooth enamel recovered from his garbage disposal, the charred bone fragments from his patio, and the eyewitness accounts of his 48-hour grilling marathon. Community activist Quanell X took the witness stand, delivering gripping, pivotal testimony detailing Tim's explicit bathroom confession. The defense team attempted to undermine Quanell X's credibility, emphasizing his past legal troubles and controversial public profile. They forcefully argued that without a physical torso or body, the state could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Tanisha was even dead, suggesting she might have vanished voluntarily. However, the prosecution delivered a decisive blow by calling the defendant's own cousin, Nicholas Shepard, to the stand. Nicholas Shepard offered shocking testimony. He revealed that months before the murder, during a casual family conversation about relationships, Tim had made a chillingly specific statement. Tim had declared that if Tanisha ever attempted to leave him for another man, he would kill her, dismember her body, and burn or boil her remains so no one would ever find her. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. The statement proved beyond all doubt that the horrific destruction of Tanisha's body was not a panicked afterthought, but a premeditated method of concealment Tim had contemplated long in advance. On October 1, 2008, the jury deliberated for less than 6 hours before returning a verdict of guilty of first-degree murder. During the subsequent sentencing phase, Tim Shepard made the risky decision to take the witness stand in his own defense, seeking to mitigate his punishment. Under oath, Tim attempted to portray Tanisha as the violent aggressor. He claimed that when he confronted her about marks, Tanisha snapped, grabbed a large kitchen knife from the table, and slashed at him. Tim claimed he grabbed her neck purely in self-defense to prevent her from stabbing him, blacked out during the struggle, and awoke to find her dead. However, prosecutor cross-examination utterly destroyed his self-defense narrative. When asked why he did not call emergency services if the death was an accidental result of self-defense, Tim had no answer. Then the prosecutor pressed him directly on how he handled her body afterward, asking if he had placed her remains on a barbecue grill. Tim coldly corrected the prosecutor from the stand, stating, "No, I placed her inside the smoker." The utter lack of human empathy or remorse displayed by Tim Shepard in that single sentence horrified the jury. His attempt to blame the brilliant, promising young woman he had brutally destroyed utterly failed. The jury returned from sentencing deliberations with the maximum allowable penalty under Texas law. Tim Shepard was sentenced to 99 years in state prison. Though no legal verdict could ever restore the bright, beautiful life of Tanisha Stewart, the conviction ensured that a dangerous, unrepentant predator would spend the rest of his natural life contained behind steel bars. Justice was fully delivered, honoring the memory of a remarkable young woman whose light could never be truly extinguished by the dark forces that sought to destroy her. Introduction. In the quiet corridors of human experience, trust serves as the foundational architecture upon which love, friendship, and community are built. When that foundation is solid, human potential flourishes. Yet when affection is warped by jealousy, vanity, or obsessive possession, the results can shatter peaceful lives in an instant. The pursuit of truth following a severe transgression is rarely a straightforward journey. It demands patient analysis, forensic rigor, psychological insight, and an unyielding commitment to justice on the part of dedicated public servants and grieving communities alike. By examining three distinct, deeply moving investigations, we gain an understanding of how law enforcement officers, forensic specialists, legal experts, and vigilant citizens work in tandem to illuminate the darkest corners of human misbehavior. In each instance, criminal attempts to evade responsibility through misdirection, selective memory, or elaborate cover-ups ultimately crumble under the weight of objective evidence and logical scrutiny. Through these accounts, we honor the memory of those whose lives were unjustly cut short and affirm the enduring triumph of truth, accountability, and humanistic integrity over violence and deceit. Book 1. Shadows over Little Elm. The town of Little Elm, Texas, nestled peacefully near the waters of Louisville Lake, was long considered a tranquil haven where neighbors knew one another by name and community bonds ran deep. It was the kind of close-knit suburb where local police officers were familiar, reassuring figures on everyday patrols. Among those who wore the badge with pride was 37-year-old Officer Wayne Irby, a 6-year veteran of the Little Elm Police Department. Officer Irby was a man whose dedication to law enforcement was evident to everyone he encountered. Colleagues often remarked that he was a lawman who truly bled blue, taking immense satisfaction in connecting with residents on his beat, offering assistance and keeping the neighborhood safe. In the spring of 2003, Officer Irby noticed an open garage door during a routine neighborhood patrol. Recognizing a potential security risk in an area that had recently experienced minor thefts, he pulled up to the residence and knocked on the front door. The door was opened by 36-year-old Denise Swall, a bright, personable woman who had moved to Texas seeking a fresh start. Denise's journey to Little Elm had been shaped by a desire for personal renewal. Raised in Kansas City, Missouri, she had been a popular, bubbly teenager who dreamed early in life of creating a warm family environment. At 22, she married her college sweetheart, and together they welcomed 2 children, a daughter named Whitney in 1986 and a son named Walter 2 years later. However, after 9 years of marriage, the relationship faltered, leading to a divorce in 1995. Seeking a clean slate for herself and her young children, Denise relocated to Little Elm, secured a promising management position with a regional beverage distributor, and managed her finances carefully enough to build a beautiful home. To outside observers, she had achieved a picture-perfect life, though she still hoped to find a trustworthy partner with whom to share her success. When Officer Irby stood on her porch that afternoon, handing her his business card and suggesting she close her garage door to prevent theft, the warmth of the interaction left a lasting impression on both of them. Wayne, himself a divorced father, found himself captivated by Denise's charm. It was not long before he returned to her doorstep, not on official business, but to invite her out to dinner. Their initial date was an unequivocal success. Wayne confided in his close friends that he felt ready to settle down, while Denise appreciated Wayne's strong, protective demeanor and the effortless way he bonded with her children, Walter and Whitney, who quickly grew to view him as a father figure. However, beneath the surface of this budding romance, subtle tension began to take root. Officer Irby was naturally outgoing and popular within the community, qualities that earned him many acquaintances on his beat. Over time, Denise developed deep-seated insecurities regarding his interactions with other women. When she raised these concerns, Wayne denied any wrongdoing, assuring her that his friendly behavior was merely part of his outgoing personality and professional duty. Yet, mistrust once planted tends to send out persistent roots. Denise found it increasingly difficult to silence her suspicions, leading to periodic arguments that strained their bond. By the spring of 2004, the couple attempted to put their misgivings behind them and took a significant step by purchasing a home together. Living under the same roof, however, amplified rather than diminished their underlying trust issues. The arguments resumed, accompanied by tears and emotional impasses. Realizing that the arrangement was becoming unsustainable, Wayne decided in the autumn of 2004 to step back from the shared residence and move into a separate rental property across town. The separation was brief. When Denise unexpectedly lost her job in November of 2004, Wayne's protective instincts resurfaced. Reluctant to leave her and her children facing financial uncertainty alone, he offered his support, and the couple reconciled once more in an attempt to rebuild their relationship. Yet the quiet calm was deceptively fragile. On the morning of December 10th, 2004, at 6 in the morning, the officers of the Little Elm Police Department gathered in their briefing room for the start of the morning shift. One chair remained conspicuously empty. Officer Wayne Irby, a man who was habitually early and impeccably punctual, was absent. Calls to his cell phone went directly to voicemail, an unprecedented occurrence for an officer who monitored his communications meticulously. By mid-morning, concern among his colleagues had escalated dramatically. Officer Cynthia Medrano approached Police Chief Waylon Rhodes, expressing her conviction that something was terribly wrong. Chief Rhodes promptly dispatched patrol officers to conduct a welfare check at the residence Wayne shared with Denise. Upon arrival, the officers found no vehicles in the driveway, the front and back. Doors were locked, and repeated knocks went unanswered. Seeking further information, officers located Denise's children, Whitney and Walter, the mature. Teenagers reported that their mother had not come home the previous night. Whitney recalled receiving a brief, unusual phone call from her mother around midnight, in which Denise stated she was running errands and expressed her love in a tone that struck Whitney as uncharacteristic and out of context. She had assured the children that they could get themselves ready for school in the morning. With both an active police officer and his partner missing, alarm bells sounded. Across the department, Detective Jerry Walker, Wayne's longtime partner on the force, was determined to uncover the truth. Accompanied by Officer James Wynn, Detective Walker traveled to the rental property Wayne had vacated just weeks earlier. Obtaining a key from the landlord, the officers stepped through the front door, calling out Wayne's name into the quiet house. In the kitchen, their eyes fell upon ominous clues. Wayne's fanny pack and his primary cell phone were sitting on the counter. For an officer who rarely ventured anywhere without his personal items, this discovery signaled immediate danger. Officer Wynn carefully rounded the hallway corner, gasped, and instructed Walker to hold his position. Lying motionless on the floor was Officer Wayne Irby. He had sustained a fatal gunshot wound to the back of his head. There were no physical signs of a struggle or a forced entry. The scene suggested he had been taken entirely by surprise. The tragic discovery transformed the missing persons case into a homicide investigation. The Denton County Sheriff's Office and the Texas Rangers were immediately brought in to process the scene alongside local investigators. Forensic analysis confirmed that Officer Irby had been killed by a single shot, fired from behind at close range. Given his line of work, investigators initially considered whether the killing was retaliation connected to his law enforcement duties. However, those closest to Wayne noted his mild-mannered, approachable nature, making a professional vendetta seem unlikely. Attention quickly shifted to the whereabouts of Denise Miller. Her sudden disappearance gained troubling weight when investigators noted that two of Wayne's personal handguns were missing from the rental home. Was Denise another victim, abducted by the same perpetrator? Or was she somehow involved in the violence? To answer these questions, officers executed a thorough search of the home. Denise and Wayne shared. In the master bedroom, they observed that Wayne's police uniform remained neatly hung in the closet, but his duty belt was missing. Its service sidearm, a .40 caliber pistol. More critically, investigators discovered a handwritten note in Denise's handwriting. The message contained distressing language indicative of deep emotional anguish and despondency, reading in part that she was tired of hurting and wished to end her
pain.
Meanwhile, at Wayne's rental home, crime scene technicians uncovered another note placed on the kitchen island. Also written by Denise, this message read, "I am sorry I took both of our lives. Please contact our moms." The note functioned as a clear, written admission of intent, suggesting that Denise had taken Wayne's life and intended to end her own. An immediate all-points bulletin was issued across Texas for Denise Miller and her vehicle. Law enforcement agencies were advised to exercise extreme caution, recognizing that a despondent individual possessing firearms posed a significant danger to herself and potentially to any officer who might encounter her. The nationwide search reached its climax 24 hours later, far from Little Elm. At 4 in the morning on December 11th, 2004, the night manager of a hotel in Gainesville, Texas, received a distressed, incoherent telephone call from a guest in room 147. Responding to the call, the manager found the room's deadbolt engaged from the inside. A maintenance worker was summoned to break down the door. Inside the darkened room, they discovered Denise Miller lying on the floor in a fetal position, bleeding heavily from a gunshot wound to her head, just above her eye. She was slurring her words and appeared disoriented. On the carpet nearby lay a .25 caliber handgun, alongside empty containers of over-the-counter sleeping medication and alcohol. Hotel staff alerted emergency services, and paramedics rushed Denise to a regional trauma center in critical condition. Law enforcement officers processing the hotel room found additional physical evidence. Inside her purse lay Wayne Irby's missing .40 caliber service pistol. The weapon had jammed because a bullet had been inadvertently loaded backward into the magazine, rendering it inoperable. This physical detail explained why Denise had resorted to using the .25 caliber pistol, a firearm later traced to her stepfather. Additionally, investigators recovered a third, more extensive handwritten letter inside the room. In this document, alongside expressions of profound guilt and references to religious commandments, Denise included a single sentence claiming that Wayne's shooting had been an accident and that she had panicked and fled. While Denise fought for her life in the intensive care unit, Texas Ranger Tracy Murphy sought permission from medical staff to conduct an initial bedside interview once she regained consciousness. The interview revealed a startling psychological complex. When asked about the events in Little Elm, Denise spoke in a faint, halting voice. While she could recall earlier events, she claimed to have no memory whatsoever of shooting Wayne Irby or inflicting injuries upon herself. When Ranger Murphy gently informed her that Wayne was dead, Denise responded with flat denial, asserting that he could not be gone. Subsequent medical evaluations confirmed that the gunshot wound had inflicted severe physical trauma, resulting in partial paralysis, loss of vision in one eye, and cognitive impairments. Medical staff noted that her psychological defense mechanisms, combined with physical brain trauma and the influence of ingested substances, had produced a form of profound denial or retrograde amnesia regarding the moments surrounding the shooting. For investigators and prosecutors, however, the central legal question was not whether she chose to remember the event, but whether her actions on December 9th and 10th constituted premeditated murder. Ballistics testing conducted by the State Crime Laboratory confirmed that the .25 caliber bullet recovered from Officer Wayne Irby's body was fired from the exact handgun found beside Denise in the Gainesville hotel room. On January 18, 2005, following medical stabilization, Denise Miller was officially charged with first-degree murder. Over the subsequent 18 months, she underwent intensive physical rehabilitation and psychological evaluations until courts declared her legally competent to stand trial. The trial commenced on July 10, 2006, at the Denton County Courthouse. Prosecutors presented a meticulous timeline. They detailed how, on the evening of December 9, 2004, Denise had driven to Wayne's rental home carrying her stepfather's .25 caliber handgun. The state argued that, facing Wayne's firm decision to end their relationship permanently, Denise yielded to a catastrophic impulse born of possessiveness and jealousy, choosing to shoot him from behind as he turned away. To counter claims of an accidental discharge, the prosecution introduced testimony from forensic firearms experts who tested the .25 caliber handgun. The laboratory analysis demonstrated that the firearm required 4.5 to 5 pounds of mechanical pressure to depress the trigger, effectively ruling out an unwitting or light-touch accidental firing. Furthermore, prosecutors highlighted her conduct immediately following the shot. Rather than calling emergency medical services to seek life-saving aid for the man she claimed to love, Denise took his service weapon, left written notes, taking responsibility, and fled the scene to conceal herself in a distant hotel. The defense counsel pointed to the third note recovered in Gainesville, emphasizing the line where Denise characterized the shooting as an accident, and argued that her severe physical impairments and memory loss demonstrated the horrific tragedy of a dispute that had spiraled out of control without explicit murder intent. On July 12, 2006, after deliberating for less than 1 hour, the jury returned a verdict of guilty for first-degree murder. During the sentencing phase, considering her severe self-inflicted physical disabilities and lack of prior criminal record, the jury declined to impose the death penalty, instead sentencing Denise Miller to 62 years in state prison. This outcome brought a somber sense of closure to the Little Elm Police Department and Wayne Irby's family. The tragedy underscored how untamed jealousy, And emotional volatility can destroy promising lives while demonstrating how. Methodical forensic science and dedicated law enforcement can dismantle misdirection and establish truth for the record of justice. Book 2: A Promise Cut Short in Houston. The city of Houston, Texas, with its sprawling neighborhoods and vibrant energy, is a place where ambitious young people from every walk of life strive to build bright futures. Among them was 19-year-old Tanisha Stewart, a young woman whose intelligence, warmth, and resilience had made her the pride of her family. Growing up in one of Houston's challenging working-class neighborhoods, Tanisha had faced hardship early in life, including the premature loss of her father. Rather than allowing adversity to limit her horizons, Tanisha channeled her energies into academic excellence, maintaining stellar grades and earning a prestigious scholarship to Texas A&M University. In the spring of 2005, while working part-time at a local pizza restaurant to support her studies, 17-year-old Tanisha met 25-year-old Timothy Shepard, a fellow employee. Timothy was attentive, charismatic, and persistent in asking Tanisha out on dates. Although her family initially felt reservation regarding the 8-year age difference, Timothy made deliberate efforts to win their favor. He frequently visited her family's home, offering technical assistance, repairing household electronics, and presenting himself as a dependable, helpful figure. Over time, Tanisha's mother and siblings accepted him into their lives, viewing him as a mature partner who cared deeply for her. However, as Tanisha transitioned from high school to Texas A&M University in the autumn of 2006, the dynamics of their relationship shifted dramatically. Immersed in a dynamic academic environment 2 hours away in College Station, Tanisha flourished. She developed new friendships, broadened her intellectual horizons, and grew increasingly independent. Timothy struggled with this evolution. His demeanor became possessive and demanding. He made frequent, unannounced drives to the university campus, constantly monitored her telephone communications, and displayed intense agitation whenever she failed to respond immediately to his calls. The relationship experienced periods of turbulence and temporary breakups, during which Timothy briefly reconciled with a former girlfriend before attempting to win Tanisha back. By the spring of 2007, during her college spring break, Tanisha returned home to Houston to visit family and friends. While she still harbored affection for Timothy, she had also begun dating a fellow college student named Mark Marks, a young man who shared her collegiate lifestyle and encouraged her independence. On Thursday, March 15, 2007, Tanisha made plans to attend an upcoming music concert with her female friends. That evening, she spent time with Mark Marks before Timothy picked her up in the early morning hours of Friday, March 16th, around 3 a.m, to drive back to his apartment. While in Timothy's vehicle, Tanisha received a cell phone call from Mark checking on her safety. The late-night communication ignited Timothy's suspicion and anger. Upon arriving at his apartment, Tanisha declined to engage. In a heated confrontation, suggesting they discuss the matter after resting. By Sunday, March 18, 2007, family members grew deeply concerned when Tanisha failed to make contact or appear for her scheduled concert outing. Unreachable by phone, a rare occurrence for a young woman who maintained constant communication with her mother and sister. Tanisha seemed to have vanished. Her sister, Gayla Taylor, contacted Timothy Shepard to inquire about her whereabouts. Timothy claimed that following a brief argument on Thursday morning regarding the telephone call from Mark, Tanisha had walked out of his apartment on foot and that he had neither seen nor heard from her since. On Monday, March 19, 2007, Tanisha's family officially filed a missing persons report with the Harris County Sheriff's Office. Recognizing that Timothy Shepard was among the last individuals to see Tanisha alive, investigators brought him in for an extensive 20-hour interview. Timothy maintained a calm, cooperative composure throughout, reiterating his story that Tanisha had departed voluntarily on foot. He voluntarily signed a consent form allowing law enforcement to search his apartment. An initial visual inspection of the residence yielded no overt physical evidence of violence, bloodstains, or struggle, possessing no legal grounds to detain him. Further, investigators returned his keys and released him, shifting their focus toward other possibilities, including Mark Marks. Detectives interviewed Mark Marks on Wednesday, March 21st. Mark was entirely cooperative, open regarding his romantic relationship with Tanisha, and deeply distressed by her disappearance. Investigators quickly verified his alibi through independent witnesses and documentation, confirming that he had traveled out of town to South Padre Island with friends during the time frame in question. With Mark fully exonerated, investigators confronted the terrifying possibility that Tanisha had been abducted by an unknown party after leaving Timothy's apartment complex. Search teams, accompanied by police canine units, canvassed the densely wooded areas surrounding Timothy's residential complex following a neighbor's report of hearing distant gunshots on the night of the disappearance. The search turned up no human remains, leaving the investigation at a frustrating standstill. However, as community concerns heightened, residents living in Timothy Shepard's apartment complex approached investigators with extraordinary observations. Multiple neighbors reported that throughout the weekend following Tanisha's disappearance, Timothy had engaged in continuous, excessive outdoor grilling on his patio using 2 large barbecue units. The volume of thick smoke had become so overwhelming that neighbors called emergency services, fearing a building fire. When firefighters arrived on scene, Timothy claimed he was preparing vast quantities of meat for an upcoming church social involving 200 people. Firefighters noted seeing large containers of meat soaking in a bathtub, accepted his explanation, and cleared the scene after ensuring fire safety. Furthermore, another resident reported observing Timothy pouring gallons of pure industrial bleach over his outdoor patio tiles shortly after the grilling. incident, creating a chemical odor so intense it stung the eyes of passers-by. Armed with these alarming reports, Tanisha's family recognized that critical time was slipping away. Gayla Taylor contacted Quanell X, a prominent Houston community activist known for facilitating communications between law enforcement, citizens, and suspects. Recognizing the gravity of the family's plea, Quanell X reached out to Timothy Shepard, offering to meet him privately. Timothy agreed, requesting the meeting take place inside his apartment. Upon entering the residence, Quanell X observed that Timothy was visibly trembling and hyperventilating, fearing the apartment was monitored by authorities. Timothy requested they speak inside the small bathroom. Quanell X looked Timothy directly in the eyes and asked whether he had harmed Tanisha. Faced with a direct, compassionate yet unyielding confrontation, Timothy broke down. He admitted that when Tanisha attempted to leave his apartment on Thursday morning, refusing to cut ties with Mark Marks, he experienced an overwhelming surge of possessive rage. He attacked Tanisha, strangling her to death on the apartment floor. When asked what he had done with her remains, Timothy claimed he had wrapped her body and placed it inside a large commercial dumpster in the complex parking lot. Quanell X immediately notified lead investigator Sidney Miller of the confession. Detectives, forensic technicians, and Quanell X rushed to the designated dumpster location, accompanied by Timothy Shepard. However, upon arrival, investigators made a disheartening discovery. The commercial dumpster had been emptied by municipal waste management hours earlier, with its contents transferred to a massive regional landfill spanning hundreds of acres. A preliminary logistical assessment indicated that searching the landfill would require months of continuous excavation costing over $500,000, with a minimal probability of recovering identifiable human remains. In a poignant display of dignity and restraint, Tanisha's family requested that public resources not be wasted on an impossible search, choosing instead to focus on securing legal accountability through forensic evidence within the apartment. Following his initial verbal confession to Quanell X, Timothy Shepard invoked his legal right to counsel and refused further interviews, recognizing that a recanted verbal confession without a body posed challenges in a court of law. Forensic specialists from the Harris County Sheriff's Office conducted a painstaking microforensic examination of Timothy's apartment and patio. The technical rigor of the forensic team produced undeniable physical proof. Inside the apartment kitchen, technicians dismantled the plumbing beneath the sink and recovered microscopic human bone fragments and tooth enamel lodged within the garbage disposal mechanism. Outside, adjacent to the patio where the heavy grilling had occurred, investigators recovered small, charred bone fragments. Laboratory testing confirmed that the tooth enamel recovered from the disposal matched Tanisha Stewart's dental records. The forensic narrative revealed a horrifying truth that contradicted Timothy's initial claim of merely discarding her body intact in a dumpster. In a calculated effort to erase all physical evidence of his crime, Timothy had dismembered Tanisha's body inside his bathroom, attempted to process portions, threw the garbage disposal, and used outdoor smokers over several days to incinerate the remaining evidence, scrubbing the patio with concentrated bleach. Afterward, to eliminate organic residue. On September 29, 2008, the trial of the state of Texas versus Timothy Shepard opened in a Harris County courtroom. Prosecutors presented a compelling narrative of domestic possessiveness, detailing how Timothy viewed Tanisha as a possession rather than an independent young woman, pursuing her potential. To solidify the element of premeditation and violent propensity, prosecutors called Timothy's own cousin, Nicholas Shepard, to the witness stand. In riveting testimony, Nicholas disclosed that during a past conversation regarding relationships, Timothy had explicitly declared that if a woman ever attempted to leave him, he would kill her, dismember her body, and burn the evidence to ensure she could never belong to anyone else. Quanell X testified with clarity regarding Timothy's uncoerced, voluntary confession in the bathroom, establishing the initial breakthrough in the case. In an attempt to mitigate the charges during the sentencing phase, Timothy Shepard took the witness stand in his own defense. He concocted an alternative claim, asserting that Tanisha had attacked him first with a kitchen knife, forcing him to act in self-defense, and that he had panicked after she stopped breathing. However, under sharp cross-examination, when asked directly about the disposition of her body, Timothy casually corrected the prosecutor regarding technical details of the incineration process, demonstrating an unsettling lack of remorse or basic human empathy. The jury rejected his claims of self-defense entirely. Timothy Shepard was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 99 years in state prison, the maximum sentence allowable under Texas law. Though no legal outcome could restore the vibrant, promising life of Tanisha Stewart, the meticulous scientific work and unwavering community effort ensured that a dangerous perpetrator was permanently removed from society, honoring Tanisha's memory through the triumphant assertion of justice. Book 3, Midnight on Interstate 540. In the vibrant Research Triangle region of North Carolina, the city of Durham and its neighbor Raleigh represent centers of higher education, professional ambition, and civic growth. Among the bright young scholars pursuing their education at North Carolina Central University in Durham was 21-year-old Latrice Curtis. Raised in a loving, supportive household as the youngest child, an only daughter surrounded by protective older brothers, Latrice was cherished for her bubbly personality, academic discipline, and infectious optimism. In 2006, during her initial college studies, Latrice met Darren Curtis, a mature, respectful young man and former National Guard soldier who shared her dedication to career success. Their affection grew rapidly, leading to a joyful wedding ceremony 9 months later. The newlyweds established a home in Raleigh while Latrice transferred to North Carolina Central University to complete her degree in business administration. By all outward appearances, the couple was building a stable, prosperous life together. However, on the cold winter morning of Wednesday, January 30th, 2008, at 7:30 in the morning, the tranquil routine of morning. Commuters along Interstate 540 in Wake County was shattered. Drivers traveling westbound noticed a figure lying motionless in the grass along the highway shoulder. Emergency services dispatched units to the location where first responders confirmed that a young woman was deceased. Initial assumptions that the victim might have been struck by a vehicle were quickly dispelled upon physical examination. The victim had suffered an extraordinarily violent, close-contact physical assault. She had been stabbed over 40 times across her face, neck, throat, and torso. Her carotid artery and jugular vein had been severed, and her vocal cords were cut, indicating an attack driven by intense personal rage. Curiously, her expensive jewelry remained intact on her body, ruling out financial robbery as a primary motive. As investigators processed the scene, a commuter named Darren Curtis drove past the backup on Interstate 540 on his way to work. Spotting the emergency vehicles and a blue tarp covering a body, Darren felt a sudden wave of apprehension. Less than a half-mile further down the highway, he observed a white sedan parked on the shoulder. Recognizing the license plate as belonging to his wife, Latrice, Darren immediately pulled over and approached law enforcement officers at the scene in a state of distress. Investigators confirmed that the victim was indeed Latrice Curtis. Darren was immediately brought in for questioning as part of standard investigative protocol. He explained that Latrice had telephoned him at 10 in the evening the previous night, stating she was running late from her university classes and planned to pick up food before returning home. Darren had fallen asleep around 11:30 at night when he awoke at 7 in the morning and found her absent. He assumed she had stayed overnight at her parents' house, a common practice when she studied late. Detectives carefully examined Darren's hands, arms, and clothing, finding no cuts, scratches, or physical indicators of a violent struggle. A search of his vehicle and the couple's apartment revealed no blood trace or physical evidence tying him to the assault. He was cleared of suspicion and released. Forensic technicians examining Latrice's abandoned vehicle half a mile from her body discovered signs of an internal struggle. The center console was fractured, and blood smears were present on the interior driver's side door. Furthermore, crime scene specialists recovered latent foreign genetic material from the vehicle's steering wheel and from beneath Latrice's fingernails, indicating she had fought back against her assailant. A critical turn in the investigation occurred during the autopsy conducted by the Wake County Medical Examiner. Pathologists recovered an intact, used condom retained internally within the victim's body. Crucially, there were no traumatic physical injuries indicating forced sexual assault, suggesting that Latrice had engaged in a consensual intimate encounter shortly before her death. Subsequent subpoenas of Latrice's cell phone communications revealed a flurry of late-night text messages and calls surrounding midnight on the night of her death. The communications linked back to a phone registered to Stephen Randolph, a star basketball player at North Carolina Central University who harbored aspirations of playing professionally in the National Basketball Association. On Friday, February 1st, 2008, Stephen Randolph voluntarily walked into the Wake County Sheriff's Office to answer questions. Accompanying him was his 43-year-old landlord and housemate, Robert Lee Adams. Reeves, a well-known local pastor and motivational speaker, affectionately referred to in the community as the Bishop. Investigators interviewed Stephen separately. Initially, Stephen claimed he and Latrice were merely casual academic acquaintances who shared university courses. However, when confronted with specific telephone records and autopsy findings, Stephen altered his account, confessing that he and Latrice had been engaged in a secretive, highly passionate extramarital affair. He explained that on the night of Tuesday, January 29th, Latrice had visited his residence. During their intimate encounter, a condom became lodged. Internally, Latrice was unable to retrieve it immediately and expressed extreme anxiety regarding potential pregnancy and the impact on her marriage. Stephen stated that she left his house around 10 in the evening to return home, while he departed shortly after to visit his primary girlfriend, Velma Newton, where he remained until 1 in the morning. Detectives interviewed Velma Newton, who confirmed Stephen's presence at her apartment during those hours. However, Velma disclosed additional troubling information. Over the preceding weeks, both she and Stephen had received a series of creepy, anonymous, blocked telephone calls demanding that Stephen end his romantic relationships. Furthermore, someone had recently slashed all 4 tires on Stephen's vehicle while it was parked outside her residence. While Stephen Randolph possessed a plausible alibi for the middle of the night, investigators turned their attention to Pastor Robert Reeves, who claimed to have been attending evening church services at the time Latrice visited his home. A major breakthrough occurred when State Trooper Isaac Cooper contacted homicide detectives. Trooper Cooper reported that at 1:30 in the morning on January 30th, hours before commuters discovered Latrice's body, he had observed a vehicle parked on the shoulder of Interstate 540 with its hazard lights flashing directly across from Latrice's abandoned white sedan. Trooper Cooper had routinely logged the license plate number of the stationary vehicle. The record's query returned ownership directly to Pastor Robert Lee Adams Reeves. Faced with this damning physical link placing his automobile at the exact location and time of the murder, Pastor Reeves was brought in for formal interrogation. Detectives observed distinct, fresh physical scratches and abrasions across his hands and forearms. Reeves claimed he had sustained the injuries when he tripped while moving a heavy wooden desk with Stephen Randolph. However, when questioned independently, Stephen completely refuted the pastor's story, stating no such moving accident had occurred. Furthermore, Investigators interviewed Pastor Reeves' sister, Willa Mae Thorpe, who attended the same church ministry. She explicitly contradicted the pastor's alibi, testifying that he was not present at the church services on the night of the murder. As questioning intensified, Stephen Randolph provided detectives with chilling insights into Pastor Reeves' private conduct. Stephen disclosed that the pastor had developed an intense, unreciprocated sexual obsession with him. Reeves had made explicit sexual propositions to Stephen, offering free housing in exchange for sexual favors and displaying intense, agitated jealousy whenever female visitors, including Latrice, came to the house. Subpoenaed telephone records definitively linked the anonymous, harassing phone calls received by Stephen and Velma directly to Pastor Reeves' personal cell phone, establishing a clear pattern of obsessive stalking and intimidation. Forensic analysis conducted by the State Crime Laboratory provided the final, decisive link. Genetic material recovered from the interior of Latrice's vehicle, and door handles yielded a conclusive match to Pastor Robert Lee Adams Reeves. The physical narrative formulated by law enforcement demonstrated that on the night of January 29, 2008, Pastor Reeves observed Latrice entering his home to engage in an intimate encounter with Stephen, the object of his intense obsession. Driven by a twisted psychological logic, Reeves believed that by eliminating Latrice, he could eliminate a romantic rival and gain control over Stephen. When Latrice departed the residence, Pastor Reeves pursued her in his vehicle along Interstate 540, signaled her to pull over onto the highway, shoulder under the guise of an emergency or familiar assistance, entered her vehicle and carried out a frantic, knife-wielding attack. During the violent struggle, Latrice fought back courageously, inflicting the scratches observed on his forearms before succumbing to her injuries. Reeves then moved her body a short distance down the grass embankment, abandoned his own vehicle temporarily due to mechanical issues or panic, and subsequently fled the area. On February 2, 2008, Pastor Robert Lee Adams Reeves was arrested and formally charged with first-degree murder. The trial commenced on September 29, 2009, in Wake County Superior Court. The prosecution presented the physical evidence. The state troopers logged the forensic genetic matches and the documented history of stalking communications. Defense counsel attempted to argue that genetic material found beneath Latrice's fingernails matched Stephen Randolph, suggesting Stephen was the true killer. However, prosecutors effectively demonstrated that Stephen's genetic material was present due to the consensual, intimate encounter earlier that evening, whereas Pastor Reeves had no legitimate reason whatsoever to have his genetic material inside Latrice's vehicle or to have his car parked on Interstate 540 at 1:30 in the morning. On October 9, 2009, the jury returned a unanimous verdict of guilty for first-degree murder. Pastor Robert Lee Adams Reeves was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This resolution exposed a predator operating behind a facade of religious authority, delivering legal accountability for a senseless crime and offering a measure of peace to the family of Latrice Curtis. Epilogue. The resolution of these three intricate cases highlights the indispensable role of methodical forensic science, rigorous logical deduction, and unwavering community engagement in the pursuit of justice. In each narrative, individuals, driven by uncontrolled self-interest, jealousy, or vanity, sought to erase human life and evade responsibility through manipulation and misdirection. Denise Miller attempted to hide behind a veil of physical trauma and selective memory loss. Timothy Shepard employed extreme measures to destroy physical evidence and concocted fabrications of self-defense, and Pastor Robert Reeves leveraged his societal standing to conceal a dark double life driven by obsession. Yet in every instance, the truth was systematically recovered through the persistent efforts of police officers, Texas Rangers, community activists like Quan Nellex, state troopers, and forensic specialists. Physical evidence spoke clearly where deception attempted silence. Tooth enamel in a kitchen plumbing line, mechanical trigger pull measurements on a firearm, and precise genetic matching from a highway crime scene stood as unyielding witnesses to the facts. Beyond their legal outcomes, these accounts serve a profound humanistic purpose. They remind society of the vital importance of recognizing early warning signs of possessiveness and unhealthy control in interpersonal relationships. They emphasize that real affection respects freedom, dignity, and personal autonomy, whereas obsession seeks ownership and destruction. Above all, these proceedings honor the memory of Officer Wayne Irby, Tanisha Stewart, and Latrice Curtis. Though their lives were cut short by tragic acts of violence, their legacies endure through the triumph of law, the dedication of public servants, and the eternal vigilance of a society committed to justice, truth, and the sacred value of every human life. Book 1, Shadows over Little Elm. Chapter 1, A Peaceful Evening Disturbed. The night manager on duty at a quiet hotel in the city of Gainesville, Texas, was accustomed to the predictable rhythm of late-shift hospitality. It was December 11th, 2004. Outside, the night air was calm and tranquil, wrapping the small city in a gentle silence typical of late autumn. Moving into winter, shortly past 4 in the morning, that silence was shattered by a desperate, slurred call from one of the guest rooms. The caller sounded disoriented, distressed, and barely audible. Sensing an immediate emergency, the manager left the front desk and walked down the dimly lit hallway toward room number 147. Reaching the door, he knocked firmly and called out to see if the occupant was in need of assistance. There was no coherent response from within, only muffled groans. When the manager attempted to use his master key, the heavy deadbolt resisted. The door was locked securely from the inside. Recognizing that someone inside was in grave danger, the front desk worker immediately summoned the hotel maintenance worker. Together, using heavy tools, they forced open the door, breaking the frame to gain entry. Stepping inside the darkened room, the two men encountered a scene of disturbing disarray. Furniture was displaced, personal items were scattered across the carpet, and lying near the center of the floor was a woman, curled into a fetal position. She was covered in blood, slurring her words and barely conscious. Upon closer inspection, they saw a severe trauma wound just above her eye, a gunshot entry mark. Lying on the carpet only inches from her hand was a small .25 caliber handgun. The hotel manager immediately dialed 911 to request urgent medical aid. He urged the wounded woman to remain still, reassuring her that help was on the way. Within minutes, local law enforcement officers and emergency medical technicians arrived at the hotel, recognizing the critical nature of the cranial injury. Medical personnel stabilized the woman as quickly as possible and rushed her to a regional trauma facility. At the hotel, police officers secured room number 147 to preserve physical evidence. They discovered an empty bottle of alcohol and over-the-counter sleeping medications on the nightstand. The deadbolt engaged from the inside initially led officers to consider two distinct possibilities. Either the woman had attempted to end her own life, or an assailant had inflicted the injury and escaped before the door was locked. The disarray inside the room presented a perplexing puzzle for the initial responders. As officers processed the scene, investigators identified the injured woman as 36-year-old Denise Miller. A routine check of regional law enforcement databases revealed a startling piece of context. Denise Miller and her boyfriend, a local police officer named Wayne Irby, had both been reported missing by their department and families approximately 24 hours earlier. Chapter 2: The Missing Officer. The preceding day, December 10th, 2004, had begun with mounting concern at the Little Elm Police Department. At 6 in the morning, members of the force gathered in the squad room for their daily shift briefing. Officer Wayne Irby, a 6-year veteran known for his punctuality and dedication to police work, failed to appear. For Wayne Irby, missing briefing without prior notice was entirely out of character. Colleagues described him as someone who loved law enforcement passionately, a man who dedicated his life to his beat and took pride in serving his community. When repeated telephone calls to his personal line went unanswered, his fellow officers recognized that something was severely wrong. By mid-morning, concern had escalated into an active inquiry. Police Chief Waylon Rhodes dispatched officers to conduct a welfare check at the residence. Wayne shared with Denise Miller and her 2 teenage children. Officers knocked on the doors and checked the perimeter, but found no vehicles in the driveway, and all entry points securely locked. Seeking further information, officers contacted Denise's teenage children, Whitney and Walter. The children reported that they had not seen their mother or Wayne since the previous day. Whitney mentioned receiving a late-night phone Call around midnight from her mother, who stated she was running errands, voiced her love for the children and reminded them to prepare themselves for school. The following morning, Whitney noted that the call felt unusually brief and out of character, and subsequent attempts to reach her mother by telephone had failed. With two individuals missing under unexplained circumstances, officers intensified their efforts across the town of Little Elm. Chapter 3: Discovery at the Rental Home. Among those most determined to locate Wayne was his partner on the force, Jerry Walker. Joined by Officer James Wynn, Walker decided to inspect a rental home that Wayne had recently leased across town during a brief separation from Denise. Obtaining a key from the property landlord, the two officers approached the residence with caution. Upon entering the house, the officers called out for Wayne, receiving no response. In the kitchen, they discovered Wayne's personal fanny pack and his active mobile phone sitting on the counter. The presence of these essential personal items immediately heightened their apprehension. Officer Wynn proceeded down the interior hallway, turned a corner, and stopped. Abruptly, he signaled for Detective Walker to hold his position. Lying face down on the floor was Officer Wayne Irby. Wayne was unresponsive, positioned near a pool of blood. A close inspection revealed a single gunshot wound to the rear of his head. There were no obvious signs of a physical struggle or forced entry, suggesting that Wayne had been caught off guard by his shooter. The discovery shifted the operation from a missing persons investigation to a homicide inquiry. Detectives from the Denton County Sheriff's Office and the Texas Rangers were called to assist in processing the scene. Ballistics analysis later confirmed that Wayne had been killed by a single small-caliber bullet. Wayne's service weapon and duty belt were absent from the scene, and Denise Miller was nowhere to be found. Chapter 4: A Romance Built on Fragile Ground. To understand the circumstances surrounding Officer Irby's death, investigators began examining the couple's history. Denise Swall had grown up in Kansas City, Missouri, where she was known as an outgoing and friendly student. She married her college sweetheart at age 22 and gave birth to two children, Whitney and Walter. Following a divorce in 1995, Denise sought a fresh start and moved with her children to Little Elm, Texas. Denise established a successful career with a regional beverage distributor, purchased a home, and managed her household capably. In 2003, her path crossed with Wayne Irby when he knocked on her door during routine neighborhood patrols to remind her to close her garage door to prevent local theft. The initial meeting led to social dates, and the two quickly formed an exclusive relationship. Wayne moved into Denise's home, forming a warm bond with her children. However, frictions soon emerged over Denise's persistent suspicion that Wayne maintained romantic connections with other women he met while on duty. Wayne consistently denied these claims, but the mistrust generated recurrent arguments. By spring 2004, the couple attempted to reconcile their differences and purchased a home together. Yet, cohabitation did not eliminate their Friction. Following heightened tension in late 2004, Wayne temporarily moved out into the rental home where his body was eventually discovered. When Denise lost her employment in November of that year, Wayne offered support, and they attempted once more to repair their relationship. Chapter 5. The Clues Left Behind. As crime scene investigators worked at the rental property where Wayne was found, another team searched the main residence the couple had shared. In the master bedroom, officers found Wayne's official police uniforms neatly hung in the closet, accompanied by an empty holster on his duty belt. His issue sidearm was missing. Investigators also located a handwritten note written by Denise. The letter expressed profound emotional pain, reflecting thoughts consistent with despair. Shortly thereafter, forensic technicians searching the kitchen of the rental home discovered a second handwritten note placed on the counter. In it, Denise expressed remorse, writing that she was sorry and indicating an intention to end both of their lives. These findings pointed toward a potential homicide-suicide scenario. The missing duty weapon and the explicit note placed heavy suspicion on Denise. However, law enforcement officers remained mindful that until Denise was located, they could not definitively rule out other potential developments. Chapter 6. The Hotel Scene and Recovery. Following the call from the Gainesville Hotel at 4 in the morning on December 11th, law enforcement connected Denise Miller to the homicide of Officer Wayne Irby. Inside room number 147, technicians recovered Wayne's missing .40 caliber service pistol. Examination revealed that an attempt had been made to load the magazine, but a cartridge had been inserted backward, jamming the mechanism. Near Denise's location on the floor, officers recovered a .25 caliber handgun registered to her stepfather. Forensic testing subsequently linked this firearm to the bullet recovered from Wayne Irby, as well as the injuries sustained by Denise. Additionally, investigators found a third letter written by Denise in the hotel room. This longer note expressed deep remorse for her actions, referencing a spiritual transgression and containing a single statement asserting that the shooting of Wayne had been an accident, followed by panic. Denise was transported to an intensive care unit. Medical personnel determined that while the bullet had caused significant neurological trauma, resulting in partial paralysis and loss of sight in one eye, she would survive her physical injuries. Chapter 7. Memory and Accountability. On the afternoon following her admission, Texas Ranger Tracy Murphy interviewed Denise at her hospital bedside. Recorded interactions showed Denise speaking in a slurred, hesitant manner. When questioned about the events in Little Elm, Denise expressed no recollection of shooting Wayne or inflicting injuries upon herself. When informed that Wayne was dead, Denise insisted that the assertion was incorrect. Medical experts noted that severe traumatic brain injury, combined with chemical substances, could result in retrograde amnesia. Prosecutors, however, maintained that regardless of her post-trauma memory loss, the physical evidence demonstrated intent and premeditation. Ballistics analysis demonstrated that the .25 caliber handgun required approximately 4.5 to 5 pounds of manual pressure on the trigger to discharge, refuting the suggestion of an accidental touch. Furthermore, Denise's decision to take a concealed weapon to the rental home, combined with her failure to contact emergency services after Wayne was struck, supported the charge of intentional homicide. In January 2005, Denise Miller was officially charged with first-degree murder. Following 18 months of medical rehabilitation and psychological evaluation, she was declared legally competent to stand trial. The trial commenced on July 10, 2006, at the Denton County Courthouse. Prosecutors presented the handwritten letters, ballistics findings, and the sequence of events as evidence of an intentional crime driven by relationship conflict. The defense maintained that the shooting was an unintentional incident followed by a panic-induced mental break. On July 12, 2006, after less than an hour of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of guilty. At the subsequent sentencing phase, Denise Miller was sentenced to 62 years in state